So another concealed carry permit case is seeking review from the Supreme Court. So let's talk about this. But real quick before we jump into this video, if you think it's time for the Supreme Court to uphold our Second Amendment rights, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. I also want to give a shout out to one of the main sponsors of the channel, and that is USCCA. Through your membership, you get training, education, and self-defense liability protection. So if you carry a firearm, I highly recommend you take a look into USCCA, and I'll put a link to them down in the details section. So the case we're going to be talking about in this video is Russell v. New Jersey. This is a case coming out of the state of New Jersey, and it is a challenge to New Jersey's carry permit requirements. So some quick background on this case and how it made its way up to the Supreme Court. The state of New Jersey is a may issue state, and essentially the state of New Jersey reserves the right to determine on a case-by-case basis whether citizens have sufficiently compelling reasons to exercise their right to carry handguns. So under New Jersey law, you have to prove to the state and to a court that you have sufficiently compelling reasons for them to then issue a carry permit for you to carry a concealed handgun outside of your home. The individual here, Mr. Russell, lives in Pennsylvania and was applying for a carry permit in New Jersey. This is because he claims that he spends several days a week in New Jersey visiting a girlfriend. Mr. Russell already had a Pennsylvania concealed carry permit, and then he applied for a New Jersey state permit and was granted one by the state police. Only the issue was that the Superior Court judges there are the ones who issued the carry permit, so it was forwarded on over to them and was forwarded onto a Hunterdon County Superior Court for them to determine whether or not he would be issued his permit. During the proceedings before the court, Mr. Russell claimed that he had issues with his ex-wife, who physically attacked him on multiple occasions, and that he also had issues with her because she suffered from a personality disorder. And because of that, he was at greater risk and wanted to have a concealed firearm on him when he's in New Jersey visiting his girlfriend. Ultimately, on review, the court denied his application for a permit because in their eyes, he failed to establish that he had a compelling reason to need a permit in the state of New Jersey. They held that although the applicant has demonstrated that he is of good character, suffers no impediments to owning or carrying a firearm, and is knowledgeable about the safe and proper use of a firearm, the court finds that he has not shown he has a justifiable need to carry a firearm. In essence, the applicant failed to establish that he will be subjected to a substantial threat of serious bodily harm, and carrying a handgun is necessary to reduce the threat of unjustifiable serious bodily injury. This denial from the Superior Court was then appealed up to an appellate court division, and in review, the appellate court held that although the applicant once again has demonstrated that he is of good character, suffers from no impediments to owning or carrying a firearm, and is knowledgeable about the safe and proper use of a firearm, they found that he has not shown a justifiable need to carry a firearm outside of his home. And because the two lower courts found against him, Mr. Russell is now seeking review from the Supreme Court. Mr. Russell filed a cert petition to the Supreme Court and presented two main questions that he would like the Supreme Court to address. The two questions presented in this cert petition are whether the Second Amendment protects the right to carry arms outside of the home for self-defense, and the second question is whether the government may deny law-abiding citizens their exercise of the right to carry a handgun outside of their homes by conditioning the exercise of the right on showing of need. And that's exactly what the state of New Jersey is doing, is they are requiring that you show some sort of substantial need before they will issue a permit. So in the cert petition from Mr. Russell, he said that the Supreme Court needs to look at this case and address this case because, one, they need to resolve the direct conflict in circuits and states over the constitutionality of handgun carry laws. If you're not familiar, across the US, especially when it comes to circuit courts, there is a huge split among these circuits about an individual's right to carry a concealed firearm or any firearm outside the home. For example, the Ninth Circuit recently in the Young v. Hawaii case and in the Pena case essentially found that under the Second Amendment, you have no right to carry a firearm outside the home, whether open or concealed. And there are other circuits that said that you do have a right to carry a firearm outside of your home. So this has led to a circuit split in which the Supreme Court needs to address. The second main reason put forward why the Supreme Court needs to take up this case is because basing a fundamental individual right upon a showing of need is historically repugnant. Essentially saying that for you to have a fundamental right, you must present some sort of need to the government that goes directly against what a fundamental right is. And the third main reason that Mr. Russell put forward of why the Supreme Court needs to take up this case, it is to end the lower court's open resistance to Heller and McDonald generally, and as applied to him as a petitioner. And this point really goes to how lower courts, circuit courts have addressed the language in Heller. A lot of circuit courts, for example, once again, the Ninth Circuit, they just outright refused to use the standards that were presented in Heller. Instead, they used tiered scrutiny, intermediate scrutiny, and balancing of interests. And a lot of times what happens with that when you use intermediate scrutiny is these states and the governments get away with infringing on fundamental rights pretty much every time because it is such a low bar and it's really easy for the government to pass their infringements using that standard. Now, when you look at the state of New Jersey's response to this cert petition from Mr. Russell, they claim first that the plaintiff did not ever raise a 2A claim at the state level. And then the second main argument they say is that this specific case should be on hold until a final determination in Corlett. So the first one, they go back and forth about whether or not a Second Amendment challenge was ever raised in the lower court. I'm not going to bore you with that. Essentially, the state of New Jersey is saying this was never raised, and then Mr. Russell, as the plaintiff, is saying it was raised in some aspect, but he was a pro se plaintiff. He didn't have representation, but in some form he did provide it. And a lot of times pro se litigants are given some sort of discretion if they don't have proper representation. So we will see whether or not that plays out here. But the main argument made by the state of New Jersey is that this case is very similar to the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Corlett case that the Supreme Court recently granted review of. And the state of New Jersey here says that since the Supreme Court is going to be hearing that case fairly soon, this case here, the Russell case, should be put on hold until Corlett is decided. In Mr. Russell's reply to the state of New Jersey, what he said is that, yes, the state of New Jersey is correct that this case is similar to the Corlett case, but what the Supreme Court should do is consolidate the cases. This is coming directly from Mr. Russell's reply. He stated that the state argues in the alternative that petitioner's matter should be held pending the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Corlett. Petitioner asserts that the government's alternative is at a minimum and not the only alternative. The court respectively may want to consolidate this New Jersey matter with Corlett since New York has a history of changing its laws to moot a Second Amendment question before this court. What they're referencing there was a more recent case brought up by the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association, and that case was up for review from the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court found that issue moot because the state of New York ultimately changed their law. Here, what Mr. Russell is saying in his reply is to prevent something like that happening, the Supreme Court should consolidate these two cases, the New Jersey case and the New York case, because they are similar, and it would prevent something like this from happening here in this carry permit case. Now, I want to emphasize what's happening right now in the Russell case is that they are seeking review from the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has not yet granted review. There are papers being filed. Like I said, there was a cert petition, then there was a response in opposition, and then there was a reply from Mr. Russell. There are likely going to be other papers filed, amicus briefs likely also saying why the Supreme Court should take up this case. And whether or not the Supreme Court takes this case independently, consolidates it, or puts it on hold until the Corlett case is determined, no one knows yet. But this is really interesting because you have two similar cases, one coming out of New York, one coming out of New Jersey, both dealing with carry permits, May issues, and how state governments essentially are just not issuing carry permits in violation of the Second Amendment and requiring people to show some sort of extra need before they are actually granted their fundamental rights, which we know that's not how that works. This is a right, it is not a privilege. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and comment down below and I'll try to answer the best of my ability. Also, if you like these videos and support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is to like, comment, and subscribe. All those things help to fuel the algorithm. It helps to signal to YouTube that you guys see value in these videos and in this type of 2A news, and then it pushes it to more individuals. I cannot thank you guys enough for liking, commenting, and subscribing over this last month. You guys have really helped my videos to reach more individuals, help expand this channel so I can get this news out to more people. So thank you so much for doing that. If you guys don't have a comment in mind, just comment down below. I'm just commenting to fuel the algorithm or fuel Al Gore's rhythm. And also, if you're a new subscriber, make sure you comment down below and I'll make sure I comment back to you. And also, if you watch a lot of my videos and you're kind of lurking and you've never subscribed, please subscribe. I really appreciate that. And also just drop down in the comment section that you are a new subscriber, but you've been lurking for a while. So as always, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And never forget, this nation was built by Armed Scholars and this nation will be maintained by Armed Scholars.